Alright, what's good y'all? Soul here, and welcome back to my story mode. I'm sure that I've made it more than prominent by now that until the 5th gen remakes actually release or get some kind of announcement or something along those lines, we are going to be worrying about said 5th gen remakes. Obviously we, as in I, because I can't speak for you guys. However, I'm sure that there's a couple of you that definitely agree. So to put things dramatically, as somebody that's been sitting here with 4th gen remake PTSD for the last year and a half, I feel like the only way to quell those concerns in any way, shape, or form is to yell about them. In this case in particular, I wanted to talk about something that I think we've kind of touched upon beforehand, but not a lot. I'm sure that a lot of us have at some point considered the possibilities of one of these remakes taking a completely different direction than a standard remake. A quote-unquote standard remake in this situation being anything along the lines of Pokemon Fire Red Leaf Green, Pokemon Heart Gold Soul Silver, Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, and I guess by technicality, Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Taking the basic concepts, characters, story, and design of those respective generations and reformatting them to fit a more modern style. With the inevitability of the 5th gen remakes being a couple of years away from now, I couldn't help but imagine the possibilities of these 5th gen remakes taking a completely different step. I say this with 5th gen remakes in particular because it feels like it has the most options out of any of the previous generations before. For example, a lot of people were upset because we didn't pull from Pokemon Platinum in any way, shape, or form for the 4th gen remakes. Now here's the thing, I do definitely agree that to an extent, grabbing from that game to utilize for the remakes definitely would have been a way better outcome than the current one that we have now. However though, and I say this with so much love for Pokemon Platinum because I am a 4th gen junkie, mind you, it still would have been mostly the same experience. I mean, yeah, there was a couple of things fixed and added here and there, but for the most part, other than the aesthetic, the only big change was the end of the story that includes Giratina and the Distortion World. If you put on the Platinum suit in Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, you've pretty much got like half of the new experiences that you would have gotten if we got more of the Platinum stuff in Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. It wouldn't have been all that different. Now, with that thought in our heads, why don't we take a look at Generation 5, which was the first generation in the entire series to ever do sequels. Throughout the course of the series, we've always had some form of definitive edition for these games. Generation 1 with Pokemon Yellow, Generation 2 with Pokemon Silver, Generation 3 with Pokemon Emerald, and Generation 4 with Pokemon Platinum. Ignoring the remakes in this case, there was always a pattern since the beginning of the series. Generation 5 was the first games in the series to deviate from that. After the initial Pokemon Black and White released, it was the first and only time that they had decided to go ahead and just make something entirely new within the same region. Instead of making a Pokemon Gray or something like that, or even just a set of remakes to just cap off that generation, they decided, hey, this is a perfectly fine region, let's utilize it even more. They went ahead, took us 2 years into the future and expanded on characters, story, lore, so many things that we never would have thought possible. It made for one of the most unique developments in Pokemon history, which is why people still consider Generation 5 the pinnacle of storytelling in the Pokemon series. But Soul, what in the world are you talking about? You've been rambling for the last 4 minutes and have said nothing of substance. Why am I watching this video? Whoa, hold your horses, bro. I warned you. I'm a dramatic individual, and I love to showcase that. If you didn't catch on to my point by now, it's simply the fact that I would like to see Generation 5 do exactly what it did well over a decade ago and deviate from the original process. Now obviously the Gen 4 revisit did kind of do something sort of similar by introducing us to Pokemon Legends. However though, if they were to do something very similar again with 5th gen revisits, I don't want whatever that second thing is to overshadow the remakes so much that the remakes aren't even worth playing. I'd like to be able to enjoy one thing for what it is, and the other thing for what it is. So I present a question. What games should the 5th gen remakes even follow? Black and White 1, Black and White 2, or something different altogether? Now naturally, you guys know me, I'd like to talk about the positives and negatives of each decision. Just because a decision can be good per se, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's automatically better. And so I'd like to dive into that conversation a little bit and discuss which direction would best suit the Gen 5 remakes. First and foremost, even though we have mostly run it into the ground at this point, I'd like to discuss the most likely option again anyways, following Pokemon Black and White 1. First off, the positive. Generation 5 Part 1 is, in of itself, a phenomenal game, and even if we were to get that just kind of remastered, it would still be good as is. Generally speaking, it's one of the few regions that does not really need all that much touching up. And especially in the story department, it's a great introduction to the region and the characters for people that haven't played it before. And unlike a lot of the games that came before it during its time, it actually gave a lot of characters a decent amount of screen time and equal amount of development. Actually, that might be just a little bit of an exaggeration, but generally speaking, it would be fine to get it as is for the most part. With those like 1 or 2 primary positives, there's only really one negative, and that is that it runs the risk of being the exact same situation that we had with the Gen 4 remakes. It would be exactly the same, kind of pointless and pretty much repetitive to just go through Gen 5 again on a bigger screen. In my younger years, I have played Pokemon Black and White a multitude of times. Therefore, I asked the exact same question that I had for the 4th gen remakes. What justification would there be for me to go out and pay full AAA price for the exact same games that I could just emulate or something? Yeah, sure, the graphics might be better and it would look really cool to play on a big screen, and hey, maybe the convenience is a little bit better because HMs aren't a thing anymore. But at the end of the day, when you compare it to the possibility of randomization through emulation, I'm still getting the exact same general experience that I'd be getting from the original Black and White. So I personally now see no justification to spend AAA price. Now again, we've talked that portion into the ground. We already know what it could possibly look like and how they could actually make it better. They would just have to take the steps to do so, and it would be totally fine. However, I'd like to sit down and consider the other 2 possibilities in this situation. One of those possibilities being the situation in which we follow the sequels, Pokemon Black 2 and White 2. Now of course, just like the original option, this also has its ups and downs. Now the first positive is going to be a little bit weird, but hear me out. I didn't realize this until I looked up how much Pokemon Black 2 and White 2 sold in comparison to Pokemon Black and White. I didn't realize it, but from a general standpoint, Pokemon Black and White outsold Pokemon Black 2 and White 2 by like 7 mil. That's a lot of people who did not play the sequels. And so, with that in mind, in turn, I feel like it could be incredibly beneficial for the remakes to just follow the sequels. For one thing, there's already a lot of general improvements to the design of the region itself because it takes place 2 years down the line. So in turn, it looks better and there's just more stuff to do. Another bonus is, even though it is technically a sequel, the story kinda just does its own thing. For the most part, even though the general cast is just about the same, you and your rival are completely different characters from the originals. You are experiencing your own completely unique journey. Because of this, completely newcomers to Pokemon Black 2 and White 2 can just play through without even having to consider playing the originals. Generally speaking, it works completely fine as a standalone game. The only real problem that we run the risk of when choosing Black 2 and White 2 over Black 1 and White 1 is kind of the same situation in which it could just end up being the exact same problem with the 4th gen remakes, which is, again, just having the exact same game with brand new graphics. It's not really all that worth it. Now, personally speaking, I still do think that it's a better option to remake Black 2 and White 2 over Black 1 and White 1. Like I stated earlier, a lot less people have played Black 2 and White 2. So, remaking these games and making them more accessible for people that never got to play the sequels is just generally much better. And if we're being completely honest, I don't remember nearly as much about the sequels as I do the originals. So, yeah, I think I would take the sequels any day. Now yes, one could definitely argue that another potential problem is a few story beats within the second game that have to do with the first game and your knowledge on that. However, and I don't even think that Pokemon Company and Game Freak realize that they're doing this, but they kind of are expecting us to have played the original games. When they were originally advertising the 4th gen remakes, they were saying stuff like re-experience the region like never before. They knew that people that have played the original games were going to be picking up that one. In which case, I doubt that they would have any problems when remaking Black 2 and White 2 instead of the originals because they kind of already have expected us to play it. So yeah, that's totally fine by me. I don't see this as a dangerous option in any way, shape, or form. Now, I do have one final option that we touched upon the idea of a couple of videos ago. In that previous video, I mentioned the idea and possibility of revisiting the region, but with a completely different story. A completely original story with a completely unique cast that takes place in the Unova region, because hey, if we could do it once, why can't we do it again? Doing this would clear up a lot of potential issues. For one thing, it would give them the freedom to reinvent the region to fit a more modern 3D design, meaning it could have open areas where wild Pokemon walk around in the overworld. It would allow for this game to have more modern mechanics that we've taken on today, like being able to throw our Pokeball, or maybe catch a Pokemon out in the wild, or something like that. In this sense, they can also create a completely original story that does not need to have any prior knowledge, so that newcomers would have an even easier time getting into it. So, with this idea in mind, it completely eradicates the problem of repetition, since even though it's the same region, it's something different. So, in turn, it's kind of a win-win. They get to utilize older concepts and blueprints that they already have laid out to create a new foundation, and people who have already experienced 5th gen time and time again beforehand get to experience something completely brand new, whether you're a new fan or an old one. Now, the only real downside to option 3 is that it wouldn't necessarily be a remake anymore, by definition. Changing the design of the region in any way, shape, or form and adding new characters and a new story makes it something new, not a remake. But please be so honest with me. Would you really be mad about that? Because I know I definitely wouldn't. I don't know, based on prior experiences here, if we're not gonna have good remakes, don't make remakes at all. I think I'm just fed up. But hey, maybe that's just a me thing. So I'll be super honest here, this script was kind of written on a whim. Like, it was sitting in the back burner of all my other scripts, and I saw it and I'm like, wow, I haven't uploaded in over a week, I should probably talk about something. So, here we are. But, like I always say, the more you complain about something, the more somebody's bound to hear about it up at the higher ups, you know what I'm saying? The big building up over at the Pokemon Company or something like that. But, you know, I'm a small guy. I don't expect this video to get anywhere. But, overall, I think it was a pretty worthwhile conversation. Now, here's the thing. I need you to pick that mic up right there and tell me if you agree or not. Do you think that we should follow a different tune than the usual set of remakes that we get? Maybe follow the Black 2, White 2 games, or something entirely different? Or do you think that it would be moronic to do anything other than just follow the original Black and White storyline, gameplay, and other features that it had to offer like it did when it was originally released? What are you guys thinking over there? I'm gonna need you to do me a quick favor and tell me everything that you're thinking in the comment section below, because you know for a fact that I am always down there with you guys. But with that being said, it do be skedaddle o'clock. Time for me to get the hell up out of here. I'd like to thank you guys ever so much for watching. I truly do hope you enjoyed. Do me the greatest favor of dropping a like and a comment, and consider subscribing for more content just like this. And with that, I am gonzo. Thanks again, hope you enjoyed, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Do me the greatest favor of taking good ass care, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!